As we continue on into Thanksgiving weekend, we are back with the final November edition of the Rapid Rundown, and I hope that all our amazing viewers had a lovely Thanksgiving. I know I did. Plenty of food, plenty of things to be thankful for at this time of year, and also plenty of New York sports news to talk about this week. Joining me on the show this week is a man who I connected with earlier this year. He is one of the hardest working people that I know in sports media. He's a content creator. He's a producer for WFAN, host of the Rap Roundtable Podcast, also host of the Pace and Space Podcast. It's my guy, Ray Jarvis. Ray, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? Pleasure having me here. I'm excited to talk some New York sports with you. We got a lot to cover, a lot to discuss. Let's get into it.
We have a lot to discuss. We're going to talk about a lot of sports. We're going to talk some hip-hop. We're going to tie some hip-hop into sports, which I like to do as well, too. And Ray, look, despite the Thanksgiving holiday, people think when it's the holidays, things slow down a bit. But no, there's a lot for us to talk about this week, including Aaron Rodgers, his future with the New York Jets, the Giants not delivering a happy Thanksgiving to their fans. But first up, we got to talk about the New York Knicks.
Oh, yeah.
We got to talk about the New York Knicks. Now, I feel like you might have a little bit of a different energy than some other people that have sat in this seat about the New York Knicks, from what I know about you with basketball. Now, Ray, the Knicks, they went 3-2 on their road trip. It was not always pretty, but they had a winning road trip through 5 games, especially with Mikal Bridges. He has been struggling. Do you think his struggle in terms of shooting the ball, his slump, is it a cause for long-term concern, or is this just, when you look at Bridges, a temporary adjustment period as he now is a new face on this Knicks squad?
I think it's a tricky situation that the Knicks are in right now because essentially what people are not talking about is the fact that they, coming off a strong playoff run, they remade their team, and we're not talking about the fact that chemistry is a real thing. It's all about the Nova boys, the Nova boys, the Nova boys. Well, you got rid of a Nova boy, right? Then you're bringing in Bridges, who has to find his way. And that's the problem. No one is figuring out that he's not necessarily a star player when you trade 5 draft picks for, right? And his best situation was at Phoenix, where he was asked to be a corner three-point shooter and defend. But if you give up 5 draft picks, you're asking him to be something that he's never been truly good at. Putting the ball on the floor, attacking the basket, being a secondary scorer for the Knicks alongside Cat and, of course, Brunson. So he's in a tough spot trying to find his way with 2 high-usage players who don't necessarily know how to play with Bridges yet either. College is not the NBA. There's rules of engagement. There's a certain level of pace and, of course, rhythm. And I feel like he's struggling to find his rhythm next to all of these guys on the floor.
I think all that is fair when you look at it. And in some way, you could say you should have expected this, right? Because of all the points you laid out, there should have been somewhat of a struggle for Bridges. It wasn't just going to be seamless. I think a lot of people thought that with the Knicks. I was not one of those people. I didn't think this was going to be seamless. I thought it would be good eventually, but I didn't think it would be seamless. Now, here's the thing, and this is the big question. If Bridges' struggles continue, right, do you think the Knicks, I don't know when that'll be that they may start to worry about this. Do you think they should maybe think to make another move before the trade deadline? Is it adding another guy off the bench that can give you some more scoring punch? Although I will argue Knicks' offense is not their problem.
Not a problem.
Right that now. But do you think this is a guy where if he continues to struggle, particularly offensively, they might think about adding another piece for off the bench by the trade deadline?
They might have to, but where is the currency going to come from to add that piece?
They've given up a lot of their assets.
All right. Again, you kind of turned over the roster to make this group work. And you gave up a piece, I believe, in DiVincenzo, who kind of fit the motif of what the Knicks wanted to do. To me, like trading Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns, you're essentially changing the entire aesthetic of your roster, right? So now you're bringing in Mikal Bridges to this group. You have to incorporate 2 guys. And then you're not moving. The Knicks are scoring the ball, right? But if you got to think about guard play in the NBA, if your lead guard is a person who has to dribble to impact the game as much as Brunson does, somebody's going to suffer. I'm not sure if a trade will fix what Bridges has going on, because Bridges also needs to touch the ball to feel involved in the offense. He spent a season and a half in Brooklyn being an active participant in the offense, and now you're telling him you'll get the ball in your school when we get you to rock. That's going to be a problem, I think, throughout the season. And I'm not sure if there's a trade that can rectify that. It's going to be up to Jalen Brunson to get off the ball a little bit and allow the other wing players to engage in the offense.
The thing that's interesting about that in that point is the Knicks' dishing has been fine. They've been moving the ball. I just think you're right in the point about he has to figure out the spots of where and when he can't score. To Jalen Brunson's credit, he's dishing at a higher rate than he's ever been in a season, and it behooves the talent that's around him. Now, OG Anunoby has figured this out fine. Mikal Bridges is more of an adjustment period, but that goes back to what you started when I first asked you this, which is he's a new face here. OG Anunoby yes, he's new into the starting lineup in the sense that he hasn't played with Karl-Anthony Towns, he hasn't played with Mikal Bridges, hasn't played with Josh Hart starting for most of this year. But now they're starting to get it together. Let me ask you this before we get off the Knicks. Do you think they figured this thing out, particularly on defense? Because I am less concerned with the struggles that we're seeing from Mikal Bridges on offense. Some of my more concern that I would have if I was a Knicks fan is on defense with him.
I think the defense is a great concern because it goes back to the Randall trade. And then you lost Hartenstein in the offseason as well. So the Knicks were a gritty team that could score. Now you're an offensive first team whereas your center position is a little bit questionable. You have Precious in there. You have a rookie whose name escapes me at the moment. I can't pronounce it. I'm not even going to try right now. But the situation is you're missing defensive-minded bigs who are willing to get gritty and really muck up a game. You have to outscore guys. And Karl-Anthony Towns, while he has defensive capabilities, he's not necessarily a defender. The cat we knew at Kentucky, who was a true rim protector, is fully an offensive big man now. So you have to figure out what kind of lineups you're going to put together that hides Brunson. Because remember, Brunson is not a defender. Anytime Brunson's on the floor, the role of the Knicks is to find a way to hide him on the best possible matchup. And as you get into the playoffs, what the teams do, they usually try to hunt out a guy like Brunson. So who's going to be the guy that steps up? That's supposed to be Bridges. Again, you traded 5 picks for him. It's not just about the offense. He's supposed to be a 3-and-D guy. He's not even defending at a high level right now. Granted, there are some injuries on the front court for the Knicks that will probably help some of his defensive issues. But again, if you put this person on the floor next to a Cat, next to a Brunson, NBA teams are smart enough to find ways to work around that or make their offense a little bit strong enough to exploit the defensive weaknesses that the Knicks bring to the table. I'm not sure if it's a universal fix. I think it'll be a mentality fix. Tibbs is a defensive genius, but I think he's going to have to knock into the heads of these players if we really have to get more aggressive. Yes, everyone wants to get out and run and score. It's the new NBA, right? But you have to lock in on defense, or when a team like the Celtics comes to the Garden or you got to go to Boston, they'll run you off the floor if you can't get stops.
No doubt about that. Now, can the Knicks get stops and get better? Sure, they can. I think you're right. A lot of this is on Wingstop. You talked about Bridges, you talked about OG. They're going to have to be better defensively to see where the Knicks can go. But that's more my concern with Bridges. It's the defense, not necessarily the offense. But we'll see where that takes the Knicks.
Also losing DiVincenzo, a defensive-minded guard as well. A lot of questions.
That's concern. And DiVincenzo and Randall, they're having their own adjustment period out there in Minnesota. We'll see what happens with the New York Knicks. Next up, we go to the gridiron, where the Giants, they fell to the Cowboys 27-20 on Thanksgiving Day for their 7th straight loss, Ray. The Giants, their 7-game losing streak. Speaking the wrong kind of history, not the kind of history that Giants fans want. So, Ray, how much of this, when you look at what's going on with the Giants, how much of this falls on Brian Daboll, and do you think that he should be on the hot seat right now?
Giants fans, Brian Daboll will be your coach next season. Joe Shane will be your GM next season. I don't even understand the logic behind getting upset. Every loss is a win for the New York Giants. You're doing what you should have done last season when you had that loaded quarterback class coming in there. This year you have Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, so there's questions about how deep the quarterback class is. But to me, I believe in sports, if you're not winning, you should be losing. Losing, you get rewarded by high draft pick, right? Why would you want to run the second-round treadmill or the mediocrity treadmill? Pile up these losses. Give your coach an actual quarterback. Everyone all of a sudden loves Daniel Jones. He's been sorry this entire time as the Giants quarterback. What are we talking about here? So when I look at the situation, Giants fans up in arms about Daniel Jones, they flirted on Hard Knocks with the idea of replacing him. They gave him a contract with outs built in because they never believed in him. This idea that the Giants wronged Daniel Jones is ridiculous. It's ludicrous to me because they've told us, the general New York public, that we don't believe in this guy. He has to prove to us, even with $108 million guaranteed, you have to prove to us that you're worthy of it. He didn't prove it. He has to go, and now we're in position to replace him via the draft.
Let me ask you this, because we just even saw up on the screen some pictures of Shedeur Sanders, obviously Cam Ward we talked about, and we'll get to this right now because the Giants quarterback situation, all right, it's been a mess all season long. I get the vibe from you that you're like, they need to get a top-tier quarterback in this draft. So is doing that, getting a top-tier quarterback in this draft, is that the quick fix that they need, or do you look at the Giants' problems bigger than just one position?
The thing is, it's difficult to measure that with football because it's not like a pie chart where everything is 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%.
Right.
The quarterback position alone, you could say, is worth 65% of that pie chart. So if you have a good quarterback or a great quarterback, it can hide your deficiencies. The Giants' situation is they've had a mediocre to bad quarterback for 6 years. So the things that they do good, you can't even see it because the quarterback is fumbling the ball, he's turning it over, he's falling down in the open field on big runs, he's not beating the good teams when you have those big-time matchups. He has not been good. And if you really understand the game, you'll see how Daboll called the offense in a way to stop Daniel Jones from himself. There was a lot of safe throws, and if there were deep balls, they were inaccurate. He's not a good thrower of the football. You can't get into the dynamic route combinations because he can't fit it into coverage. So you are playing with a handicap. Getting a quarterback to the Giants would allow them to stay on the field longer on offense, which would give the defense, who's actually pretty good at the beginning of the season, a chance to get more rest and be more effective later in games.
When you talk about that, right, I agree with you. The pie chart is not equally divided. I think that was a really good point that you make there. But when you look at what the Giants possibly could do in this draft, who would you like to see them get? Some people talk about Shedeur. Some people are going to talk about Cam Ward. Who would you like to see the Giants get that you think will be a good fit that could turn things around for this franchise?
I don't really see the Shedeur Sanders hype as a quarterback. I don't understand what the hype is. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not the most athletic guy. The only thing he does right is he's taken a program and he's helped transform it. So I'll give him some points on that. But as far as a quarterback goes, Cam Ward has the body type, he has the arm talent, and he seems to be willing to be coached into the right situation. And I think a guy like Daboll, who had his eyes on Jaden Daniels, wouldn't mind settling for a Cam Ward, a person who has a raw ability and all the skill sets you need to run a Daboll offense. So give me Cam Ward if possible.
All right, rocking with Cam Ward there. We'll see what the Giants can do. You're saying they should. So you want them to lose. I'm just going to be clear.
The rest of the season. I came into the season saying if we go 2-15, it's a blessing. Giants fans need to stop being emotional and start being realistic about the future of your franchise. Losing is winning in this case.
I hear you. Some fans want to win, but sometimes you got to lose. I hear you got to lose.
You want to go 7-9 and draft 16th and don't have a quarterback?
You don't want to be stuck in mediocrity. I hear you. I don't know if all the Giants fans would agree with you, but I think some people are okay. They just want to see better days, right? Want to see better days for the New York Giants. All right, Aaron Rodgers. Got to talk about him. Look, he's been vague. I'm gonna say he's been vague about his future with the Jets. He was on the Pat McAfee show this weekend, said if he comes back and plays in 2025, he wants it to be with the Jets, but that's not a firm commitment there, right? So he's kind of leaving the franchise in limbo. So, Ray, how do you think the Jets should handle this uncertainty moving forward? Because that's what it is. They do not know exactly what they're doing in 2025. They do not have a head coach right now. They need to hire a new GM, and the quarterback situation is uncertain. So how do they handle this uncertainty moving forward?
First thing, you start with some holy water because there's some kind of energy in the Jets organization that even when it seems right on paper, they just cannot get right. So get some holy water, sprinkle it all over the factory, the practice facility, go to the field, sprinkle something there, you start there. Me personally, I bring back Aaron Rodgers if he in fact wants to come back, but I would also draft a contingency plan. The Jets are kind of in the same trajectory as the Giants as far as keep losing. Get a high position, get a quarterback, and figure it out. But the defense is there. They have talent on defense. They have talent on offense. They have no business being 3-8. I don't quite understand why the Jets are so bad. I'd say run it back. Draft a quarterback. Bring back Aaron Rodgers if he wants to come back and try again next season with a real head coach as well, because Brick ain't it. Robert Saleh wasn't it. So get a real head coach in there and try to figure some things out. But on paper, I like this. This roster should not be as bad as it is.
I think that's fair. I think the pushback from some people will be, yeah, but the quarterback is older. I call him old, say he's older, and Father Time comes for us all. He's had some injuries. So to run it back with another year older of Aaron Rodgers, is that the best thing for them to do here? I think you're saying that it's fine as long as they have a plan. I think also part of the pushback will be the Jets have not shown to always have this plan in terms of drafting and developing a quarterback. And so do you trust that unless you have the right people?
Well, unless you have the right people.
Right, and that's a big thing.
And the biggest story in New York as far as the Jets goes is their owner meddling and not allowing the front office to function as the proper front office. And now we're hearing about him hiring a firm to help with the search of the next GM and head coach and things of that nature. So it always starts at the top. Who are you going to bring in to be the centerpiece of this organization on the front office side? And then what is the trickle-down effect of the decisions they're going to make with personnel? So the Jets have a lot going on. I'll roll the dice with Aaron Rodgers because the arm still works. People forget that when you rupture your Achilles, you need about a year before you're kind of yourself again anyway. So give Aaron Rodgers another year. If he was losing something on the fastball, I'd be like, oh. But the arm is still there. The mind is still there. The want-to is still there as far as moving in the pocket. But it's just a matter of him getting more confidence with that Achilles. And what's one more year? It's Aaron Rodgers. You have Devontae Adams. You have talent everywhere. Lock in.
Okay. Let me ask you this. How do you view the Jets in terms of being a contender for a Super Bowl next season? Because I guess the question for me is, would you argue that they are one or two pieces away from true contention, or is their window that they have with Aaron Rodgers already closing?
I think if it's a two-pronged answer. I believe that the window is teetering with Aaron Rodgers for obvious reasons, as you laid out before, with his age and degradation of your body with the Achilles and what might happen in the offseason, right? Then on the defense, some of their players are kind of losing a step on the linebacker position, but you have strong safeties. Sauce Gardner's one of the best corners in the league. Your front four strong. To me, again, when I look at the Jets, I came into the season saying, okay, Rodgers is back. They're going to be good. I keep looking at this team and I watch them play and I'm like, why are they so bad? And then they're not necessarily bad. They've been unlucky. They haven't finished some games. And it's just bad chemistry as far as team goes. Like, it's not really necessarily bad football. It's not like when you watch the Giants and, oh, this is a bad team. The Jets just seem to be unlucky and have a situation where you need a certain level of good energy, team chemistry, and good decision-making when it matters most to win games.
Some people are going to hear that, and they hear the unlucky and how the Jets have lost, losing some games. They're going to be like, hey, Ray, that's same old Jets. We've seen this before. We've seen this movie before.
You're right. That's why I said holy water first. You got to change the energy in the room.
You got to get the bad juju out the room.
Get Kyrie in there, get some sage, figure it out.
I hear you on that. Well, Jets fans, they want the Jets to figure it out, but one of the first things they got to figure out is Aaron Rodgers. What are they going to do? Is he coming back? Who else is going to be around that? We will see. It will be an interesting final month of the season for the New York Jets and a very interesting offseason for the New York Jets. All right, Ray, got to do a bonus question. You also host a hip-hop podcast. I used to host a sports and hip-hop podcast. Now, for me, this year's been a pretty good year for hip-hop. You and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about some really dope albums that have dropped, particularly recently. We just got the new Kendrick Lamar album, GNX. Loving the album, bumping it. Now, one of the biggest songs for the year from Kendrick, as everybody knows, Not Like Us. That song has been an anthem for many people. So I got to ask you this. Which New York team right now most embodies Not Like Us energy, and why? Who you going with?
First and foremost, I want to give you credit for being a real person, saying that Not Like Us was a banger because of all the controversy surrounding bots and lawsuits of Drake and things of that nature.
No. I'm gonna stop you right there. We're gonna be clear. We don't do any of that kind of behavior. We don't co-sign that kind of behavior.
We do not.
On this show. Just to be clear for those who don't know, Drake allegedly is suing UMG, saying bots helped to promote Not Like Us for the anthem that it was. So some people are out here saying it's fake news, wasn't a real anthem. We do not engage in that kind of behavior
at all,
as you can see. I'm glad the real recognizes the real. I'll leave it at that.
You're a real human. You see him. He's a real person. But to answer your question, for me, selfishly, it has to be the New York Mets. I'm a Met fan. I bleed orange and blue for better or worse. And I think coming off of this season where no one believed that the Mets would be anything as they were, it has to be them. Francisco Lindor, to me, an underappreciated Met. He's up until this season, he would have been one of the most underappreciated Mets of all time. If you go to Baseball Reference and you pull up his stats, people act as if he just showed up this season. He's been performing the last 3 seasons as the Mets shortstop. He's been robbed of a gold glove twice. So in my opinion, that group, Mark Vanto showing up in the postseason as well, and you have a lot of young talent. You have young Acuna, Ronald Mauricio on the way, and hopefully Juan Soto, if he should decide to sign with the Mets. To me, the Mets are in position, along with our owner, Uncle Steve Cohen, we are in position to potentially run the city and show the Yankees and the rest of the New York sports world that you guys are not like us. Let's go Mets.
Wow. You got to smoke for the Yankee fans?
Just a little bit, because if we get Soto, it's going to hurt them.
Yeah, you whispered Soto there. I feel like you need to say it louder with your chest.
Well, because I respect the Yankees at the end. They're still the Yankees at the end of the day, and it wouldn't surprise me if Juan Soto ends up staying in the Bronx.
But I hear you on the vibes around the Mets in that they were doing it their own way. They had the whole OMG stuff. They had the Grimace stuff going on.
Great energy.
Everybody liked the energy around, and you think they could take it a step further with this not like us energy if they land Juan Soto.
Whether they land Soto or not, I think they're in position to improve the roster. They'll improve the pitching staff. They're going to get a bat or two, and they'll be in position to compete. These are not the Mets of the Will Pond era where the pockets are kind of tight depending on the year. Is it a Ponzi scheme? Is it we don't want to spend? We just don't know. With Uncle Steve, we're in every conversation that we want to be in. And as a New York sports team, that's how you should operate. You should never operate as a small market team in the tri-state area, in my opinion.
I can't disagree with that. All right, if you let me know when people watching this clip, watching the show, do you agree with Ray? Are the Mets the not like us team of the New York era? I think it's a good answer. I like it. They've definitely brought that energy. It's not a bad thing for New York.
At all. We galvanized the city.
There you go. You just want to let the Yankee fans know.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Just a little bit. A Mets fan saying that it's just a little bit. All right, that is my guy, Ray Jarvis. Check out all his work, the Rap Roundtable Podcast, the Pace and Space Podcast, fantastic hip-hop podcast, one there. Also, a really great basketball podcast as well. He produces on WFAN, doing great stuff. Hey, like I said, you're one of the hardest working people in New York sports media and content creation. Glad we connected this year. Glad to have you up here.
Likewise.
Got to have you back.
Just say when and I'll be here.
Done. We'll say when. And maybe next time you come back, you're going to have some not like us energy if the Mets sign Juan Soto.
Oh, I'll be unbearable.
They're not going to be able to tell you nothing.
I'll be unbearable if Soto signs with the Mets. Fair warning.
I can see that. Everybody, as I said, check out Ray. We will be back next week, next month, final month of the year, December that is, on the New York Sports Rapid Rundown.